right, welcome to another episode of the Rap Thought Podcast, brought to you by Brandon and Matt. And
Yes,
we
sir.
sitting here, we chilling, getting ready to do another episode.
Yeah, man, I'm ready.
I'm
ready.
I'm gonna spoiler alert, like everyone. I wouldn't expect anything less of Matt having this boner over this album. He's gonna probably say things like, "Oh my God, it's been so long since they've got together. It's cool that they still have it. This album was great. It was a breath of fresh air. This was amazing. The production was awesome." I'm gonna take all the wind out of your sails and say you're gonna say all that shit. You're not gonna say anything.
Well, my question to you is any of that untrue?
I guess we'll find out as we talk about the album, but I'm talking about you right now.
How about I won't say anything until after we go through it? I'm not going to say anything right now.
That smile says I'm not even wrong. So I'm not saying that it was a great album. I'm not saying it was a bad album either. I just know what you're going to say.
Gotcha. Well, I don't even want to attempt what you're going to say. I just want to be surprised.
Sure. I don't think you know what I'm going to say.
I don't actually. I have no idea. But yeah, for all of our listeners out there, we are doing Blu and Exile's Miles, an interlude called Life is the full title.
Man, I meant to say all that. My bad.
And this is the first artist that we've done twice in our short lifespan of a podcast.
I was hoping it was going to be Kendrick, but
Yeah. No, I wish Kendrick would drop an album. He needs to.
you don't.
ASAP. Oh, I would love for Kendrick to. But it's not on purpose. The Below the Heavens was episode 8, I believe.
Yeah, it did come up randomly.
It came out of a hat, so this isn't on purpose that we're doing them twice. It just happened like that. And when an artist that either of us or both of us drops a new album and we really want to do the album, we'll do it. So if it's an older album, it's random. If it's a newer album, one of us wants to do that album, or both of us does.
Wow, did either of us want to do the baby?
Oh,
Is that what you're saying?
well, yeah, because someone had to bring it up, and I believe that was you.
Yeah, it was. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I guess there's still like an element of randomness of like,
It is,
there's
yeah.
a new album coming out. Should we hit this?
Right.
Yeah, it'll suck, but we should do
Yeah.
it.
And like Brandon alluded to earlier, I was excited to do this because Blu and Exile have not dropped a full-length new album in 8 years since Give Me My Flowers While I Can Still Smell Them, which is an amazing album in itself. It's very different. It's a little bit more experimental. It's more of Blu writing random thoughts, and it's more thoughts out of a journal, and it's introspective, and it's kind of out there. And with that, the difference with that album compared to Below the Heavens and this one is Exile just sent Blu the beats. Blu did the album on his own. He did the lyrics by himself. As opposed to this album, Exile actually produced the album. He's sent Blu concepts and ideas for the album, what he wants Blu to do. And they actually sat together while Blu would bring Exile samples for the music, and Exile would make the beats while Blu was there, and Blu would write to the lyrics on the spot while Exile was making the beat. So a little bit more chemistry and a little bit more involvement from both of them during the making of this, and I think you can tell that it was like that. It makes a difference when both the producer and the artist is working together.
How do you weigh this with? I'm wondering if I'm thinking of Mickey Fax, but did he do an album with Knots, or is that is Mickey Fax?
Yeah, that's Mickey Fax, and
Okay.
Blu did an album with Knots.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
So how does this rank up with his work with their last album, with the one he did with Knots, and then the one he did with Damn the Fudge Man?
I think Blu is always going to stand out with Exile's production and the way Exile produces. So Blu's even said that. He just did an interview, and he said, he likes working with other producers. He's worked with Madlib, Alchemist, some of the top producers in the game. But he said the difference with Exile is Exile will give Blu concepts and give him direction and say, Blu, I want you to write about this, or I need you to change that. I want you to do it this way. So he actually gets produced on this, and that's the difference with Exile. So I think Exile is always going to bring out the best in Blu. He's going to bring out a different side of him that you don't get on some of his other albums. So I think this one's a little bit, you can connect to his work with Exile more than some of his other projects.
And it sounds like from your description too that Exile, like it's not just behind the production, but he also has some influence on what the concepts
Absolutely,
are.
yeah, which is what a producer does. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between a beat maker and a producer.
Right.
So Exile is producing. He's not just making the beats and emailing them to Blu and then he writes the lyrics.
Yeah, so it's like a legit collaboration between the two and hearing it in their work.
Right.
So
absolutely. What was your thoughts going into this after, because we went through Below the Heavens and you're like, this is a cool album. I like the concepts, but I don't need to revisit it. Mm-hmm. Did going into this album, were you worried about the same thing where you're like, I'll probably like it, but I'm not going to revisit it. It'll just be whatever.
I hate to paint the picture like that, but it is, it's part of it. As with any other artist that you didn't, you grew up listening to Blu. I was introduced to him by you. But yeah, kind of going in definitely with an open mind of, he does talk about some cool stuff, and I don't know, there'll definitely be some things that I point out during the pod. But I actually went in with no expectations.
Yes.
I didn't go in like when I see the title, I'm like, oh, maybe Miles Davis, like just kind of a guess. But then you look at the cover and it's like it has nothing to do with Miles Davis.
Right.
It kind of look from a distance. It's like on the left, you kind of looks like Run DMC.
Right. Yeah.
It looks like the hat and then the chain and everything,
which makes sense because in this, a lot of the songs are throwback to that era of hip hop.
Right.
There's a lot of, he's paying tribute to a lot of those artists from that era.
To a lot of artists, people, and just he pays homage to a lot of people throughout this album. But yeah, I mean, it made me think of, because then I remembered from Below the Heavens how he talks about how his dad was a pastor. So I'm like, okay, so like there's going to be some religion stuff in this, and I take it that's Exile on the right.
Yeah.
So I can't really read into what he's doing. But, I kind of, like I said, like I just went in with an open mind and he talks about some cool stuff and concepts. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And with the cover, at first I didn't really like it because I was like, what? Because the cover obviously came out before the album was released. And I was like, I don't really get why they did this kind of cover. But then after listening to the album and listening to Exile speak on the purpose of this cover is it's an old tree with its roots exposed. And a lot of the songs and the themes of this album is looking into your roots, looking to the roots of humanity, roots within yourself, and they're being exposed. So Blu's exposing those roots throughout this album.
You know what I'm going to add on to that too? Is that Miles is also in reference to the journey that he's covered and how he's gone a long way. And there's a track where he's talking about, I've gone farther than Christopher Columbus and Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. And so with this, I want to say like this tree is obviously old. It has multiple roots. It's shooting in different areas. It's also lost a lot of ground being exposed that those roots were once touching in there. So it's been through quite a bit. So I think that juxtaposition of them, Miles, the tree out of the ground, kind of speaks a lot to what the album's about and what's covered.
Yeah, well said. Awesome. Before we get into all the tracks in the album, I want to thank all of our listeners out there. Thank you for tuning in on Spotify and iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher. Keep hitting us up on social media. I just want to thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for listening and all that. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it. This is a long album, so and not in the bad way, in my opinion. So the first track is Blu, the color blue, and it starts off with samples saying off colors: yellow, blue, red, green, whatever. And I thought this was a great way to start the album. As a lot of hip hop albums that we've covered, and in general, the first track is usually more upbeat, and it kind of hits you hard and brings you into the album at a fast pace. But this intro is a little bit more welcoming and comforting. It's a lot warmer than you normally get with intro tracks. So it's not as like in your face. It's a little bit more, welcoming you into the album rather than throwing you into it.
The first thought I had was like, can we not have a track where he's all about his name? Because when we did Below the Heavens, it's like Blue this, Blue that.
Yeah.
But you know what, man? Like, I actually liked the concept of this intro track. Mm-hmm. He's using, as you said, different colors, mostly blue, to describe things. A line that caught my attention was every album outpouring out these gangster blues, Abraham Lincoln in that navy blue. Mm-hmm. And what I read into that was like, we are, because throughout the album he talks about how blue is a representation of like the sky and the ocean, and how everything blue, like nothing, blue is usually perceived with something positive. Mm-hmm. And so kind of the thing I read into that one was that, the gangster blues, so like the story of the streets, he's delivering to people, and he's having people reflect on his personal story and other stories. And when he brought in Abraham Lincoln and the Navy Blues, it made me think of the Civil War. So he's having this war to free the slaves. So in relating to that, these people that are just locked in and are slaves to whatever else, and he's providing knowledge, firsthand experience, and encouraging growth so that people kind of are unlocked. Right. But the only thing I'll criticize is that Abraham Lincoln did not have that war just to free the slaves. He did it to save the Union. So
there's other than that reasons. Yeah. He has some really powerful lines in this intro. Like there's some deep lines, and I think that's one of the things I really love about this album is because there's a lot of depth to what he's talking about. Going off of what you just quoted, the next lines after what you said is, for that Native and American and African American man, we can all stand together like the colors of the flag. So the man of the land is the man of the nation. Same colors came together to begin creation. Red rock, white smoke, blue ocean. So he's referencing Native Americans, the Africans that were brought over for the slave trade, and they are the true colors of the nation here because they helped build it. They were here originally. So when he says red rock, white smoke, blue ocean, he's describing the American flag with those colors, but also the land around America and the people, the Native Americans who are red and things like that.
I thought blue, the color blue associated with black people, like just as a darker color. Right. Obviously it's not red, white, and black. Right. But I also kind of saw the white as part of that too, because white people that came over are a part of that creation of America. Yeah,
but they're the smoke, which is where do you get smoke from? It's from a fire. It's from destruction.
Right. And so that's a really cool way to put that all together. Mm-hmm. And so, but just kind of saying that we all blend together and create this flag. So kind of this. There's a song I'm looking forward to talking about later on where it's just basically promoting that unison and that cohesion between everybody. So, cool track.
Yeah, one last line that I really loved from this, there's just one line. It was, I don't see the glass half full, I see the whole pitcher.
That was a dope line.
And it was a play on words, and I see the whole pitcher, glass. He doesn't see a glass half full or empty, he sees the whole water pitcher, but also the phrase is, I can see the whole picture. He's taking a step back and seeing everything from a whole. And that one line kind of summarizes this whole album, where he's taking a step back and looking at everything from a larger point.
That is a great thing to say about the rest of the album, because it really is. You see him do quite a bit where he's not himself at times. He's placing himself in the footsteps of someone else. Right. And going over. So, then we go into When the Gods Meet, the second track. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I quite understood the first verse. Mm-hmm. So if you got that one, I'm looking for some.
Yeah. It's hard to know. It might be one of those songs that we got to listen to a little bit more and to really get the true meaning behind.
Yeah, because I read over that a few times.
Yeah.
And listened to it a couple
Well, when he says there was a marriage for the sea and the sun, and it was powerful. The sea told him, if he falls, I devour you. The sun told her, if she flies, I shower you. One day they both kissed the earth. The flower grew. So for me, he's kind of talking about the creation of earth and the sea and the sun, and how they all, like how the sea and the sun came together to create life.
That's what I got. So it was the second. That's where I was going to go into. The second verse on made total sense and was dope. The first verse kind of caught me, but I really, as you mentioned, like I really did like that dichotomy of like the sun and the sea. And so like, you know, the sea saying to the sun, if you come down here, I'll devour you. And then the sun saying to the sea, well, if you come up here, I'll shower you. I'll disintegrate you and you will fall back down to where you are. And I thought that was really cool. But then also talking about how like there's these two powers, but then that coming together, they create life. And so I just like that visual there of like, yeah, you kind of do need the sea and the sun, like the sea to kind of give life. And also they both, sun, fire and water both give life. I don't know if you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I have not.
But it talks about that too.
They have all the elements.
They have all the elements, and you know, fire is perceived as destruction, but then later on they learn and talk about how like fire is actually a source of life. You have to be really careful with it, but it's life. Right. But I like too, they incorporate like, then they had kids basically, and so the seasons, and the seasons help cultivate and move things along. So
yeah, it's a pretty deep song. But I love the beat on this song. I think it's such a dope beat. I love the samples on it, and I love the chorus. When the gods meet, the angels serenade you, oh so sweet, and oversee that you bring light to the dark. Yeah, the angels sing.
And you know, we can't forget the third verse. Like I thought that was actually pretty important too, because he's kind of noting his own personal worth in this. And so he isn't calling himself a god or a king, but he holds himself not any lesser than either one of those. And I thought the way that he phrased that and put that together was pretty cool. And, you know, just kind of putting that to the test of, you know, there was a line about basically, if you come at me, it better be a double dare. Like really think about what you're doing before you step up to me, because I'm really about, I'm serious.
Yeah, he's prepared.
So I like that. Because what was the song? Oh, yeah, when the gods meet, kind of talking about the importance of all that, but then putting himself in that, he considers, you know, taking himself serious, knows his worth. I respect that.
Yeah.
You know, as I was going through these tracks, I kind of noticed that they do build off of each other pretty well. Whether if it's an interlude at the end that then the next song picks up on, or like there's an element, like maybe a second or third element concept of the main song that then gets elaborated further on the next track. And so with the third track, True and Living, it's kind of like at first he's talking about gods. And now he's talking about, as I mentioned, like knowing his own worth, but also being true to himself and living, like just knowing truth.
Yeah, this song actually came out last year on an EP that they dropped along with one of the last songs, Spread Sunshine. So I had been listening to these songs for quite a bit. And yeah, True and Living's a dope track. It's a little bit more broad. It's not as focused as some of the other songs on the album, I feel like. And one of the lines that I really like from this song is, open your hearts and let us walk throughout your mental fortress. Close down your chart soon as we spark, because you're content to forfeit. Bring back original rap to what it's meant to be. And for me, he's saying, open up yourself and listen to what we're saying to you. We're bringing back what rap and hip hop is really about. It's about spreading messages and spreading a message and connecting to people. It's not necessarily about selling and making money and you know, dominating everyone. It's about putting out what you feel inside and getting it out there and putting it on wax and having other people listen to it and connect. I thought that was a really cool line. And you know, he raps a lot on this track. There's like 3 verses.
There were a couple lines that I don't think I put that line down, but I did like a couple others. We only come in peace to preach about the next coming. And then this is for those becoming who you intend to be. Pull off your suits and struggle and wash your sins in the sea. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, as you're saying, I want hip hop to go back to where it was, where we're, talking about what's happening to us. This is also like challenging the person, the listener, to also do the same thing. Because like we get so ingrained with life and trying to, be on the come up that it's like, yo, shed that suit. That's not who you are. And actually just be. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was a pretty solid line. And, you know what? There was this next one. Challenge you to play the tracks back to back. Oh, this is where he's like challenging MCs in a sense. So like in a lot of his tracks there is some subtle like jabs at the generalized. He
has that confidence as an MC that you want from an MC. Mm-hmm. Especially, referencing some other albums that we've covered on this podcast from the early 90s or 80s. That was one of the main points that the MC tries to get across, is that they'll destroy any other MC that comes at them and that they'll dominate them. So Blu definitely still carries that in his music. Is he believes himself to be a formidable MC, and he'll out-rap anyone that comes at him.
So remember when we did Jurassic 5 and when Charlie Tuna said fuck your Lexus, and you brought up like, I wonder if that's kind of a shot at Jay-Z. Mm-hmm. And so this line had me think of something similar. And he said, and Blu says, elope the truth and spit a jewel at 80 verbs per second. You can never measure records with that few who did it. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's kind of could be perceived as a jab at fast artists or current artists out here right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he is referencing artists that are, just out for the financial gain or the material gain they can get from rapping, and he's saying, you guys are doing it for the wrong reason, and I'm going to show you how it's supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm. When he said that, like, I'm thinking about all these mumbling folks that put out a bunch of stuff in one verse, but then I thought of Eminem too, who's shattering records for the most syllables in one, per minute and stuff like that. So I was like, well, I don't think he's directly doing that.
Yeah.
But, can be perceived as that if you're
for sure
paying attention.
Definitely. And then, so going into the next track, Miles Davis, I love this song, and I feel like it brought me back into the album in a great way, into the theme of the album and the sound of it. It's a great jazzy sample. And, I love the production on this. This to me feels like classic hip hop, just the sound of it.
I can see that. The thing that threw me off is that it has nothing to do with Miles Davis. So
yeah, the title of it, I think it's more of a reference to Miles Davis' music and his sound rather than himself as a person.
And when I was trying to like, well, why would you do that? Like, I got the sound thing, and then just what he talks about in the track, I was like, maybe he just plans on like walking into that club with Miles Davis energy and like, I'm gonna blow these people away.
And Miles Davis had crazy energy. He was a wild dude.
Yeah, and so like that part kind of made sense without saying it, and I was like, okay, like I'll buy that.
Oh, this is definitely like Brandon likes to say, he's hip hopping on this track. So he's just spitting. Yeah. He's spazzing on it. I love the lines in this track. When he says, "I autographed my cash and called a cab. We on the map back in New York City like a Dodger cap. Blue, smooth like blue suede shoes. I told my homie improve. I'm Tim Allen with the tools."
Did you know that the Dodgers were originally from New York?
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I love that line.
Okay.
I had to think about it for a minute. I was like, wait, a Dodger hat in New York? How does that fit? And I was like, oh, he's bringing the Dodgers back to New York.
I guess fuck. Like I saw what he was doing, but it didn't fit though. It was just like,
I just thought it was a dope line because the sound of this brings you into New York, like a New York jazz club. That's the sound of it. This is what it brings you into listening to a Miles Davis in a jazz club, like underground in New York. That's like the feeling that I get from listening to this song.
What?
The feeling.
Oh.
Oh, you're already ready to go into the next one?
Oh, the feeling. So, the feeling. What I mean, this track. I didn't mean to cut you off like that, but
Oh, no worries.
I know what you mean though. Like,
Yeah.
and that I feel like that goes into this. This next track was more. It's not that it's gonna be hard to explain, but the feeling, the feeling when. Oh no.
Yeah, this is a lot going on in this song. From the lyrics to the poem at the end, there's a lot to unpack here.
It's kind of like that feeling of motivation, perseverance, and for him, like he mentioned God, and I'm not religious, so I kind of nixed that one out for me. But he's talking about the feelings of when you're down and out, and oh man, that first verse though was cool because it fits with the times of like, he's talking about just being like a black man and the irony of people asking him how he feels. And then towards the end of the verse, like, but it's like a stupid question to ask me. And really, like, I don't give a fuck about how you feel. Like, there's a lot of shit on me right now. But I have to push through and continue and do my thing.
That's one of the things that I love about this album. Coming from where he was on Below the Heavens, where he was young when he was 20 years old when he made that album, 21, 22. And his perspective of life on that album was very much of a 21-year-old. Then you go all the way to Miles, 13 years later. And now he has the perspective of a mature adult living in this world, trying to understand everything going on around him. In this album, he's trying to understand the world. Below the Heavens, he's trying to understand himself in the world. So I love the growth that he's had. And this song perfectly explains his growth. Like you said, he's not giving a fuck how you feel anymore, other people. He's learning to set boundaries and like, hey, I don't need to give a fuck how you feel. I'm trying to understand everything on my own. I don't need to understand your feelings about it.
Yeah. And again, like just finding that strength to move forward. I mean, I don't know if that's Philippians, whatever, where the strength of God is.
Right. Well, it could be whatever. Could be whatever it is that helps you to get through your struggles.
For sure. I mean, we're talking about him and his track, and that was it. Right. And so, I felt that. I was like, okay, like I've definitely had that feeling before of like, man, I really don't want to fucking do this today. Right. Like, you just have to do it. And it's just that feeling that keeps you going.
Yeah, and the second verse is very personal to him and what he's gone through. So what he's talking about, it really happened to him where I think it was in 2013 or 14, his house was broken into and all of his music equipment and all of his recorded music was stolen and he had nothing. And so the whole verse is about that time in his life when he lost everything. And he's like, well, I have a daughter now. I can't record. I can't make money from making music anymore. And he's like, how the fuck am I going to get through this? So in the lines when he says, and the fact that I'm broke and my life is on the ropes, but I've got good health trying to buy high hopes. But you never know. Some people lose a lot more and get it back. And that's why I'm torn. I have a huge love for making music to encourage. So he's saying, I'm broke now. I don't have my musical equipment to record, but I love making music and I love making music to encourage. How can I do that when I feel down and out? When I feel like everything was taken from me? How am I going to persevere to make the music that I want to make?
Right. And, that's a lot of work, but, for the next track, Music is Everything, it kind of gives you like a good...
Well, before we go to the next track, I wanted to talk about Jacinto Rines, who does the poem. So Blu said in his Instagram, he did like an Instagram live before the album came out, and he talked about how he met the poet because he went to a soul food restaurant in LA, just randomly. He went there to eat, and I forget what it was. It was taking forever to get the food, and he's waiting there, and he sees a book on a chair, and Blu goes to the guy working there. He's like, "Oh, I have that book in my house. It's a book about poems." And the guy goes, "Oh yeah, that's me. I wrote that." And Blu's like, "What?" Like, I love that book. And then the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm the author." And that's Jacinto Rines. And so Blu's like, "I need to get you on my album." And so he invites him to come on here and recite his poem on the song.
That's dope.
Yeah, and I just thought that was a crazy story and a crazy way to get someone to be on your album. Where it just by happenstance you run into this guy where you've been reading his book.
That's cool. I mean, I didn't know that was all a true story about like his stuff getting stolen. So
Yeah, he posted about it on Twitter, and he went through a hard time, and I think that was a dark period for Blu, and I think it took him a while to get out of that. And now he's had enough time where he's gone past it, where he can reflect on it and speak about it and be like, yeah, I went through this time and I was able to persevere and get out of that. And now he's able to make the music to encourage.
When I was reading or when I was listening to the track and then reading the lyrics, like they were it was so specific, and you got the feel of it of like, yeah, man, that sounds like it sucks. Because he's talking about not only losing his equipment, but like the legality of like also losing the stuff that he actually owns, like the ownership of his lyrics and his work and everything.
Yeah, and it's like, where the fuck did that all go?
Yeah.
Like, who has that? Like, what's going on with it? It's a terrible thing.
And so normally, like, if a rapper's mentioned that before, it's like, okay, someone like who was it? Kanye had something stolen. Was it Kanye that had something stolen from him? Or like people getting their chain stolen, and it's like, okay, I got to go get that back. It's like all you hear about is chain, but he's talking like about his actual work, and then also going into how devastating that is.
But what's great about Blu and his lyrics is he's still grateful at the end of the day. He's like, I still have good health. I still have something to live for. That was shitty what happened to me, but that doesn't define me. That's not the reason why I'm here. I can move on from that.
And if it's not this track, it's another one prior where he says, I've gone through adversity before. So like nothing like this, but it's not too different to where I can't come out of this alive and come back up. So I respected that track a lot. So, and this is where, my bad for cutting you off, where number 6, music is everything. I think it kind of gives some background as to like maybe some of that motivation or that feeling for him to continue going forward. And this is a cool track to in reference to back in the day for him.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point that you just said. He's now pointing out all the music that gave him that feeling. And now he's speaking on it and saying, this is all the music that gave me that feeling, and now I'm trying to recreate that with my own music. But yeah, I love all the references and him pointing out him growing up listening to all these artists. He's paying homage to all of his musical influences, from Tupac, Eazy-E, Snoop Dogg, LL Cool J, Michael Jackson. You know, it's cool to hear him point out all of the artists that make him who he is.
I like how he incorporates stories too of like, yeah, you know, I watched that Michael Jackson video, then the next day at school I was dressed up as him, and like people didn't notice me, but I felt like a badass, and that was cool. and also, you know, when he's talking about Tupac and how there were two things I like. He talked about Tupac and how that album went over his head. So he's like, I'm not listening to this, because that's on this podcast. I've had that with a lot of albums now where I'm like, man, this is definitely not for my 9-year-old, 12-year-old head.
Right. It's too deep. But he loved the album cover because he thought Tupac looked like Superman.
Yeah.
So because it's like red and the way he's standing. So Blu is probably like, oh shit, that looks great. Looks like a cool guy to listen to. Let me listen to that.
And then when he spat a line of something about getting busy at Burger King or something like that. And now his mom just like spanked the shit out of him. And I remember one time like at home, it's me and my mom and my buddy Frank, we got in the car, and I remember there was a DMX track that I heard her listen to one time and she liked. But I don't think she was actually listening to the lyrics at the time. It was just like was in passing. Her was like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. So then my buddy Frank played it, and then she got super pissed off because of all the language in it. It's like, yo, I thought you were cool with that. So it just makes me think of that of like,
and then he also references his stepdad being a reverend and saying all secular music is banned.
That came to an end, and that sucks. I mean,
especially as a kid when all your friends are listening to it, and you know, you find joy and you get that feeling from listening to this music, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, you're not allowed to.
It made me think, because when he was talking about like listening to all these classics, I'm sure you have some memories of like being with your parents and like listening to certain music, and I don't know. So the way that he painted the picture was, I liked it.
And I really like Choosey's verse. If you don't know Choosey, he's in the Dirty Science crew with Blu and Exile. And Exile produced an album for Choosey that came out last year called Black Beans.
I think that's on our list.
It's on our list. I really can't wait for that one to come up. It's an amazing album, and Exile's production on that is crazy. But yeah, Choosey's super dope. He also talks about his influences and
as Blu being one of his influences.
Yeah, points out Blu and Exile were his influences, but also Rakim and LL Cool J and like all the older artists as well. I love Choosey's line when he says he got a lot of his music influence from being in church. Church ladies fall across the pews while they preach to it. They was focused on the cross, but I just watched the keys moving, feet moving, each movement speaking to the beastly humans. So he's talking about he's talking about his younger self being in church, and there's a lot of music involved, but he's not focused on the sermons or the messages of being in church. He's focused on the actual music and getting the feeling from that.
That's how I was. I mean, my mom was she didn't go. I mean, when she grew up, she was in the church. And so when she became an adult and had kids, she was like, I'm not going to force you guys to go.
Yeah.
But when we moved and, I was in my teens, my buddy Kevin would go to church.
Yeah.
And so, I would go. Church is definitely not my thing. But I always liked watching the people in the choir do their thing and the piano play. I remember there was just this one set that was amazing of, one person playing the piano, someone on cymbals, or just doing a bunch of stuff and just watching that musical play. And music is just awesome. That's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, especially when you get that feeling from it.
I forgot to ask you, have you seen Bad Times at the El Royale?
No.
Okay.
What is that?
Bad Times at the El Royale. It's a good movie. It's a crazy movie. And basically all these people wind up at this hotel and a murder happens and stuff like that. But it has Jeff Bridges and a couple other people I can't remember right now. But I've thought of this because I actually have a couple tracks back where True and Livin'. I forgot to add this part where like there's a truth in, because there was a line where he says, basically we can save those that are dying. And obviously you can't save someone that's dying, but you can have them say that, kind of profess their truth, absolve them of their sins at the end, which was a big part of the last part of Bad Times at the El Royale. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I had to throw that in. I think it's because I saw classics and I saw, I put down also like, oh yeah, man, like him talking about classics reminded me of DMX and Snoop Dogg, that thing that just happened. But a lot of thoughts on there that I had to make sure I was like, oh shit, I just thought about that. Hold up, my bad.
So moving on to Brightest Stars. But yeah, I love this song. We haven't really touched on it yet, but I've been loving the production so far. The last song, Music Is My Everything. I love the beats on that. I love the beat on Brightest Stars. And the main theme of this is, pointing out people want to come to LA and be rich, famous rappers, but then realizing you got to stay true to yourself and not try to be like everyone else and chase riches.
We just talked about this in Jurassic 5.
Right. What is a star? A star burns really bright and then it disintegrates. And that's relating to wanting to be famous. You become a star, you're super bright, and everyone sees you, but then it dies out. It doesn't last forever. So it's like, do you really want to be a star?
One line that I feel like sums up what you're saying is when he said, having dreams about prostituting my image to get bitches, then I changed it up because I was lame as fuck. And it was just like, in that verse, he's talking about all these ways of, coming up and doing whatever and like, okay, cool. Like I want this car, I want this house, I want to do this. And in that line, he clearly is like, wait, no, I'm prostituting myself. This is stupid. And 2 lines after that, I didn't know if it read as like someone else checked him and was just like, nah, man, that shit's whack. or
Right.
like he just came to that conclusion himself.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah, it's him looking back at his younger self and realizing that it wasn't really him to be wanting the fame and the bitches and whatever else comes with being a famous rapper. That was just what everyone else was showing him what he's supposed to want by being in the music industry. And then he takes a step back and is like, wait, what am I doing? I'm selling myself to go somewhere, to be at a certain point, which you don't need. And he realizes that after meeting Exile.
he did say that.
And Exile basically saying, like, pointing him in the direction of, no, just be true to yourself and write about your life and your experiences and your thoughts. And that's how Below the Heavens came to fruition. And he says, after I did that, all these blessings came to be. Because if he didn't do that, if he stuck to his original idea of a rapper, of, selling himself, would he have made it as far? Would he have separated himself from the pack enough to make it? We'll never know. But I think he realizes that he made the right decision in terms of his music career.
Yeah, and he comes back to that, as we've talked about in previous tracks and as we will in future tracks, of true and living, like staying true to yourself and being you and not trying to fake an image that you aren't.
Right.
So,
and I loved AC Alone's verse as well. AC Alone is from Freestyle Fellowship. He's an LA legend. He's an amazing rapper. He's got some amazing albums. I love that he got him on this album. And I love, I don't know how to say her name, Ishi. But she does the hook. But yeah, it's a great hook. I love it. It says, "Revelation to the world, it's never been fine. You may shine in Hollywood. I shine on Crenshaw. I dream blackness. I'm the brilliant, brightest light shining in blackness." So I thought about that and what that means. If you shine bright in blackness, that means there's nothing else around you that can see your brightness, because there's just blackness around you. But why are you afraid of that? Why are you afraid to shine on your own and not have others see you?
some people don't want to be in the spotlight.
Right. Or it's saying you can shine regardless if people are looking at you or not. You can still shine and be bright if you just stay true to yourself and you know, love who you are. You're going to shine regardless if anyone's actually seeing you.
Do you shine?
Yeah, every day.
Okay. Just checking.
Every day. But that's what I read from the hook. And I thought that related to the song really well.
I think it's pretty spot. At the end, there's this interlude, as I mentioned earlier, of like blue can be associated with anything good. So the sky, the water, minus cloudy things and everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a good segue into number 8, Blue as Can Be. And how we talked about how a lot of these tracks, they blend in. Some of them blend into the next one. Mm-hmm. So, in the track we were just talking about, if he's saying like, this is, oh shit, like I really need to wake up and this is what I don't want to be. I don't want to be prostituting myself. Mm-hmm. Now we're looking at the results of him staying true to himself, where now he's blue as he could be because blue's positive. Mm-hmm. I basically just wrote down that he's doing really good at this point. He's no longer has any worries. He's, about rent, living, whatnot. I mean, he's still black in America, and he touches on that just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But with all things considered, he's as blue as can be.
Yeah, he's talking his shit on this. There's a little bit of battle raps in here. Mm-hmm. He's coming out aggressive and standing tall of who he is as an artist. I love this song. I thought he killed it on this. His flow was crazy. He said, blackout at shows, no Glock, black proud, and I'm blue. I used to sing James Brown. I used to talk through towns, tearing down egos, rocking gold, wearing a crown, airing our style, all hail to the king. Hair grew out wild a long time ago. There's a lot going on in those lines, but just standing up, like I said, standing up tall and being proud of who he is. tearing down other people's egos. Other people's egos aren't going to get in his way. And he's professing himself as a king, and he's letting his hair grow out. He doesn't need to be fit into anything. He can grow his hair out however he wants and be proud of it. And
are we kings now if we grow our hair out?
maybe if you're blue.
Yeah.
No, but I just thought I just love that wordplay and the meaning behind it. And I love the third verse when it switches to just like a jazzy, kind of like a freestyle track. It turns into like a, you know what I mean? Like a, just a jazz instrumentation, and Blu changes up his flow pattern. It kind of changes the beat a little bit. I thought he blacked out on that as well. He said, build a black fence around my mansion. I'm a black man, black hand, black fist, clenched activist, Black Panther party, bigger pistol packing, rapping Christmas gifts. I'm gifted rapper. If you can get it, grabbing grams, grip it on another level, take a stand. And I was just like, after I heard that, I was like, holy shit. Like,
you put your headphones down?
Yeah, I was like, all right.
Oh my God.
I need to take a break. He's going crazy on this.
Like a weeb. But what you talk about, the confidence that he has in himself in that track, and we talk about how he's doing good at this point. As we go to the next track, it is now furthering and building upon that by calling everyone else out. So people that kind of, I guess if you want to look at it as people that did say like, yeah, I'm going to prostitute myself out for these bitches. I'm going to do it for the cars. I'm going to do all this. Now he's kind of saying like, he's documenting all the things that he's lived through. And
and the song is You Ain't Never Been Blue.
Sorry, we can get to that. So, but basically saying like, you ain't never been blue. Yeah. And by being all this fake stuff, you ain't never been blue. I'm in a good place right now.
Yeah.
So like, if you've never been staked out by the cops, I don't know if he has or not, but if you haven't, been called out, staked out by the cops, lost a battle, then your girl, parents split. One of the lines I liked is, you want to sell your soul, but can't get no bread for it. But yeah, he's just putting all these things on the line that he had to go through that made him kind of be true to himself. And that last line of like, people really doing everything that they can to try to make it and it still won't sell, that's demoralizing.
Right.
You're
selling yourself and you're still not making it. That's way worse than just staying true to yourself. I got another perspective on this song where You Ain't Never Been Blue. I took it as blue as in the blues of being down. You ain't never been down like I have and persevered. Where he talks about, all of his hardships and struggles that he went through. You ain't never been through what I've been through.
It's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right. It's the same thing, but you can get two different perspectives from it.
Oh, I mean, well, that's what I'm trying to say is that like he's using his hardships to say that like you haven't been through all this stuff and just stuck with it.
Well, I got from it's an entendre of you ain't never had the blues and you never been blue as in me. It's like
you're pointing out the double entendre.
Yeah, exactly.
Using his fucking name every chance that he can. Gotcha. All right.
But yeah, it's a cool song, and again, I love the beat on this. I thought it went really well. Exile killed it as well. I liked his verse. It's a cool song. I always like it when artists talk about when they've been down and out or their struggles, because it lets you in a little bit on how they got to where they are, and it gives you some perspective on who they are, rather than just talking about their mansion and the girls and the drugs and the money. That doesn't tell me about who you are.
Right. And like all that said, the song, this was my interpretation, but the song actually ends on a positive note instead of just saying, hey, you ain't all this shit. Because he says something along the lines of, you can be blue any day. And it sounds like because you were free that you can be blue, as if you're setting yourself free. So like, just because you don't have these shared experiences, if you're working towards freedom, like, we have some type of common ground.
Right. And these lines kind of sum up the whole song. He says, the illest rapper rapping that ain't golden, ain't platinum, because I ain't sell my soul for some cracker or mansion.
Oh, you know what? I wrote down the same one.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, so the illest rapper rapping that ain't golden, ain't platinum. And so I was like, man, he's from LA. And Lakers are from LA. And they're always talking about all these rings. So
that could be a reference.
if you're the illest rapper alive, and it doesn't matter if you've never gone gold or platinum, then we can stop talking about all these rings all the time when we start talking about championships. Then is that a fair ask?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? He's one of your favorites. He's in your top. So if
well, it depends on who you're talking to. That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
Most people are gonna look at the numbers and your record sales and your, how popular you are. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can have a different conversation with someone else, and you can talk about their impact and their ability and their skill level. That's a whole separate conversation, I feel like. Because look at Black Thought. Black Thought is like the I don't know who to compare him to, an NBA player that's never gotten a ring. That's amazing. You can
Charles Barkley?
Yeah, you can compare it to Charles Barkley or Karl Malone or whatever, one of the best ever, and yet he doesn't have a ring. Does that take away from who Black Thought is? Because Black Thought's never been put up at that high of a regard because he's always been with the Roots, and he hasn't really had the Black Thought albums up until recently. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
No, I totally get it. It was more of a jest.
And so you could talk to some people and be like, yeah, Black Thought's the best ever because of his ability. Or you're going to be like, no, Eminem's the best ever because he sold the most records. Mm-hmm. So they're two different conversations, I feel like.
I'm just going to remember this discussion the next time someone wants to bring up, like, oh, we have 17 rings. Right. So I'm like, well, but the Suns, like, they don't have anything but the impact that they had. So
yeah, they changed the way the game played. So dope song. And after that, we go into Miles Away. And I have to say, when I first heard this gave me that feeling of just classic hip hop. This reminded me of some early 2000s or late 90s Jay-Z, just classic New York hip hop.
I can see this.
That was just from the sound of it. That's what I got from it.
2000.
Yeah.
All right.
It brought back that feeling to me, and yeah, I love this song, and I feel like this song at this point in the album, we're kind of halfway through, and he kind of sums up the album a little bit when he says, he's gone a lot of miles in his life, but he still has a lot of miles to go. Mm-hmm. He's miles away from where he wants to be. He's not finished yet.
Just like the tree, as we referenced in the beginning.
Right. He still has a way to go. So he says, the hook is, I ain't got time to waste, ain't got time to stay. I'm on the move. Promised land is a mile away. I be damned if I miss my fate. I'm trying to go further than yesterday. And that's a really powerful hook of saying, I don't have time to, sit back and be like, woe is me, I'm not where I want to be, or I didn't get this, or this didn't happen to me. I'm on the move, I'm going forward, and I'm still a ways away from where I want to be, but I can see it. It's only a mile away. I'm almost there. Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep pushing.
Yeah, every day you get a little bit closer to your goal and everything. Mm-hmm. What takeaway line I got from this one is just from an old saying that I've always heard for a long time: is 6 billion ways to die, how many ways to survive? And so I've kind of been on this thing lately where it's like, instead of, you come up with an idea or something happens, and instead of thinking of like, oh shit, like what's going to happen from this, like look at what right can come from out of that. Mm-hmm. So like there's a very explicit, there's 6 billion ways to die, but it's like, yeah, man, how about we start looking at the ways to survive instead of the ways to die?
How many different ways can you live? Mm-hmm. What choices can you make to change your current situation? There's also 6 million ways to change that. Mm-hmm. I thought, that's a good point that you brought up.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of my takeaway from the track. I really like that. Kind of fit in with my not my new, but just way of thinking.
Yeah, dope song. And so the next one goes into Troubled Water, which is a little bit of a darker track. The beat It's a little bit darker. It's still a dope beat. It's hard, but it's got a little bit of that reggae vibe to it. And again, Blu's spazzing on this, talking his shit. It's another one where he's hip hopping, as Brandon likes to say.
So, question, like, you name this album Miles, kind of run away with Miles Davis because of a lot of the jazz influences in the beginning. When the reggae came through, did you feel like that fit in, or was it kind of weird?
It definitely, when I first listened to the album, it definitely put me off. I was like, why is this sound in it? But the more I've been listening to it, I like the change of pace. I like the change of the flow of the sound of the album. Because again, this is a 20-track album it's over an hour and a half long. It's a really long album to sit through. So I feel like they put this type of beat in on purpose to kind of switch it up a little bit, just to re-energize the listener and pull them away from the album sound-wise so that they can pull you back in afterwards.
So what you're saying is like, hey, we got an hour and a half worth of music. If we keep playing the same thing, it'll be somewhat monotonous.
You'll get tiresome.
So let's throw in some. Okay.
Yeah, so I really like this song. When I first heard it like I said, I was like, I don't know. But now that I'm more listening to it and I listen to the whole album in a row, I appreciate it and I like it. And he's got dope lyrics in it. So.
Yeah, I think it's one of my favorite beats on the album. And, at first, similar to you, it's like at first, like, I don't know if this kind of is going in a different direction. But to look at it as in, because you're getting an hour and 35 minutes worth, let's switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I like that way of thinking.
Yeah,
so.
I love this line. He says, "You rubbing me the wrong way if your DJ ain't cutting a hookup. Fuck do you see when you look up me? BLU, and you can add the E, exile, word up." So he's referencing in Below the Heavens when he says it's BLU, and if you see the E, drop it.
Right.
But now he's saying add the E because I'm with Exile. I just thought that was a cool throwback to that. And he's also saying, hey, if your DJ ain't cutting up a vinyl and scratching a hook, I don't like. What the fuck are you doing? That ain't hip hop. You know what I mean?
That is cool. That's a dope reference. I just caught that. I'm like, yeah, he did say that in Below the Heavens.
Yeah.
Damn. Roots of Blue, another Blue reference.
Dude, this is a deep track. There's a lot. You could do a history class on this song, and figuring out all the people and things that he's referencing in this.
There was an album that we've done before. I think it was The Allegory by Royce da 5'9", where it had me looking up people that I wasn't familiar with. And this isn't the only track that he does this, where he just goes off on different people. But I was like, yeah, I can't look
Right,
at
yeah, it's too much.
That's too much.
It's too much thrown at you at once, but I feel like that adds to the depth of this album and the replayability, where this will live on for a long time, because a year or two from now, you'll be listening to this song again. You're like, okay, I have time now. Let me sit down and figure out who all these people are that he's referencing. Because you don't have to do that now, but you can sit with it for a long time, and when it hits you at the right time to look up everyone, you will.
Yeah. And so with all those people, this is what I got, was that like he was kind of embodying these people and learning from this culture and doing all these things, and then looking in other areas to go and advance and possibly conquer, as some of these people have done. But then while he was away, there was people at home that were doing the same thing. So he was like bumping heads as he would go back. And, especially in the third verse, he's then transitioning to people that have like paved the way. So all the people that he was embodying before have all paved the way in one direction. But in the third verse, like absolutely. And these are people that held high positions, that really made advancements for black people coming up. But it was just kind of like this conflict of like, I'm doing this, but then things are falling apart, may fall apart here or are changing here, and I have to deal with that as well too. There's just too much work going on.
Right. Yeah, I like the way that he broke up the theme of the song in the 4 verses. The first verse is about the origins of man and the first civilizations on Earth. The second verse is biblical history, where he goes into the Abrahamic religions and the key figures in those. And then the third verse is the slave trade and coming to America and all the influential figures during that time. And then the fourth verse is black musicians that have kind of shaped the musical landscape of America and the world. So for me, the whole theme of this song is Blu paying homage to his roots as a human, as a black man, and as a musician. So he kind of goes through all three of those in detail.
It's a great way to tie it all together.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really dope way that he did it, because how do you go from, like, I feel like that would be such a tough job to do, of going through the origins of man all the way up to today in 4 verses in one song.
I mean,
like, think about doing that, how much of a task that would be.
Yeah, and he does it,
and he's
just
rhyming, and he's making it cohesive.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing it by just throwing a bunch of, like, giving you an idea, then throwing all these names in and making it rhyme, but you have an idea of what he's conveying without being explicit.
Right.
And so as we talk about this, we might as well throw in the next track too, African Dream, because here is where he's also talking about paying homage to the homeland. So he's describing it as like the land of creation, the land of culture, but also putting himself in the shoes of a leader and, doing shit like hunting lions and cutting heads off and showing dominance and things like that. But these tracks go together, I would say.
They do. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great continuation. And this is a little more focused on his roots of being African American.
And wanting to spread. So, like, all this knowledge that he has from those 2 tracks in African Dream, presenting that, or dropping it, trickling it down to his offspring and keeping the culture going. So that's
and I loved Aloe Black on this. He was great on the hook. Although I wish he had a little bit more. I wish he had a verse or something, or sang more. But yeah, really dope track. He's giving history lessons in this, which is super dope. He says, "They call me the Homo habilis because I created the habitat. Before the great Homo erectus invaded half the map, he would catch a lion, kill it, and put his head on a stick just to prove to everyone how strong he really is." So he's talking about the different evolution periods of man and how they became Homo sapiens. Before the Homo sapiens, what was going on in Africa.
So it's like taking it back before Roots of Blu a little bit.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's why I thought it was important to bring them up together, because they basically be repeating ourselves for the next one.
Right. No, that was a great shout.
But yeah, but it's a cool, as you said, history lesson. And, there's a lot of people in there worth looking up and becoming familiar with. So, yeah. 14, Requiem of Blu. Requiem's such a weird word. I had to look it up.
It is, yeah. You don't see it. Yeah, it's not used very often.
Yeah. But, the general thing I got was, reminiscing of hard times and expressing aspirations about what is to come based from the experience that he has.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah, Fashion killed the hook on this. But, this is a great song too. It's, being young and dreaming of getting out of your current situation and wanting the life that you want. You're hopeful when you're young and you have all these dreams and aspirations that you want to accomplish, and you're not yet, bogged down by the realities of being an adult. One of the lines that I really liked was, "09, we was in our prime, had youngins chopping onions, Kid Cudi's day and night, out in Vigo, now a wino, throw a C note on a couple classic people." So for me, when he's saying he had youngins crying like Kid and Cudi's day and night, because it's a very emotional song.
Did we do that?
We did that. Go check out our episode on Kid Cudi.
We did that.
Man on the Moon. So yeah, if you want to listen to us break that down, go check out our previous episodes.
Cool. Wow.
But I love that reference to Kid Cudi, because they were actually on the Freshman cover together in 09. And it's cool. Like he knows he's made some music that's impacted people and had them cry, as had Kid Cudi, because Kid Cudi makes that type of music. I just thought that was a cool throwback to '09 in that time. Yeah, it's another dope track. I loved it.
It's slower paced.
Yeah, I really wish Fashawn had a verse and not just the hook. Mm-hmm. And this song was perfect for Fashawn to rap on. I'm not sure why he didn't, or why they didn't ask him to.
Maybe they'll catch him on the remix.
Yeah, hopefully. So to summarize the song, for me, it's using your words to get out your dreams. Mm-hmm. It's like putting them down and letting everyone know what my dreams are and getting them out.
Yo, the next two tracks, American Dream and Dear Lord, I almost think you have to talk about them at the same time. And one at a time. But like, American Dream is like what you would envision. Like, he's just basically, he wants the bullshit that is the American dream. He wants the blonde, he wants the house, he wants the car, but then not. Like, just saying that he wants the material things and what he needs, wants independence, but then again wants to be able to help. He wants to take care of his family. He wants a global civilization. And when I read this word, that's why I personally wanted to tie it with the next one, because he's really asking for this extremely tall order from the Lord. And because he ends American Dream by basically saying, it gets cut out, but he says, I want to be God. And it's just, the song evolves from like wanting these personal materialistic things to them wanting things for the world and for it to be like this better place. That's what I got from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also wants more for his family. You know, he wants more for the people around him. He wants to have a house with a studio so that he can have all his friends record and make music and release it on his own label. So yeah, really interesting. I love this song. I love Miguel on the hook. I love the last Artful Dodger on it. She's super dope. She was on the last Anderson .Paak album. So I'm sure she'll be blowing up pretty soon. So
let's take all of that and then add it to Dear Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Dear Lord, he's putting out there that he's calling out all the separation that we get from religion and race and class and violence that we have, and pointing out all the things that are creating division among people.
And what
humans.
was cool was like he was saying, I don't want everyone in the next couple of years. I don't see everyone being Christian. I don't see them being Catholic. I don't see them being Buddhist. But like, it was weird because like we are all serving God, but just not underneath those titles.
Right.
And as you were getting at, there's no police, there's no brutality, there's no starvation, there's just no religion. It's just a perfect world. And the thing I liked is truth is king and his wife is love. I was like, oh shit. But
yeah, it's him manifesting what he sees as the not the, I don't want to say perfect, but the most sensible and rational way for humans to live on Earth is what he's pointing out.
Which is interesting because like most people would consider and label that as a utopia.
Right.
In the utopia, when we talked about in class, like it's this, like this civilization that has to be created that's almost like a fallacy. It's just not.
Right.
It's unobtainable.
It's idealism.
Yes. But why not? If every religion has some ounce of love to it, why couldn't this is kind of a deep question, but why couldn't what he's asking for happen? Right. That's why I put this as a tall order.
Right. Because, like I said, humans are irrational and not sensible a lot of the times. And why would we kill each other? That doesn't make sense. Why would we commit crimes and violence against another human? Doesn't make sense, but we do it. It has no purpose for us surviving as a species.
It depends on who is saying that, though, because I mean, if we want to talk about history and slavery and stuff like that, there is a reason for why we're doing these things. Well, yeah, like we are going to slave these people because like we can divide these people up and get free labor off of it and whatever else.
Right.
Like it's just finding that justification for doing these things.
Oh yeah,
shitty.
There's always a way for humans to find justification. That's what makes us human. We have the brain power to do so and to make ourselves believe that it's justified.
It's just interesting how you mentioned irrational. It's like we think so much to where it becomes irrational, where you would think that would put us beyond animals because we can't quite say what their thought process
And speaking of
is.
animals, he does reference, humans stop eating meat. And what we come to a place where we don't need to kill other things to survive on Earth. But yeah, like you said, it's a tall order. That's a lot to ask right now in the current state of the world.
It kind of reminds me of health. When my appendix ruptured back in March, there was kind of some things that not a whole lot I needed to change about my diet, but it's like, yeah, you could. And this is the thing in general is that there are a lot of us that don't get a lot of fiber in our diet. But then having gone through that, it's like, yeah, I'll probably make that change. But it usually doesn't. My point is that it usually isn't until something happens that people are willing to make a change to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And so
that's with many things in life.
So, I mean, I don't know. I guess I lost my track for a second. But that comes back to, him saying, like, in a world where, well, not explicitly, but like where we're not eating meat, how prone are you to making changes in your own best interest? Like if I told you, like, Matt, you're not eating enough fiber, you should probably look into gummies or eat more meat or do something. Would you tomorrow start doing that? How long would you hold up for with this new thing too? Would you be like, okay, cool, I'll go get new fiber and I'll only do it for a week and then go back to doing my old shit?
Yeah. It's something that would have to be a collective decision among everyone that, okay, this is the direction we're going to go. And like you said, it's not going to happen until it's too late or we're forced to make that decision where, the animals, all the animals that we eat contracted a disease and we can no longer eat them. Okay, now what do we do?
Oh, like bats?
Right, yeah. Or any, you know what I mean? So it'll probably take something like that for things to change. But with all of that, you get to the fall but not forgotten on the next track,
which is kind of a sidestep from this conversation.
Yeah,
but
it kind of deviates from that. And this is another track where he's referencing a lot of historical figures, mostly in music, but also some people just in history in general that have passed away, and Blu is paying homage to them.
Similar to African Dream, where he's when you were talking about in the third or the fourth verse where now he's going off musical artists, this is happening again. Fallen people, artists, victims, actors, and just like their contribution and just saying things. Kind of like Joyner Lucas giving a rose to Will Smith, but he's still alive. But this is where he's doing that.
Yeah, he references a lot of cool. Basically, everyone that's passed away, especially in hip hop. He references Guru, Idea, J Dilla, Proof, MCA, Nate Dogg. I have a question for you. How do you feel about listening to a song where a lot of it's just like listing off names?
I mean,
does it put you off or do you enjoy it?
I mean, I think it's cool. I'm trying to think of who. I don't think it's Jurassic 5, but there's like a track where they just list off all these people, like rest in peace, Jam Master Jay and all these people. And it's kind of cool to hear about people that artists look up to. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't put me off either way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've read a few people were like, oh, he's just listing off people. Like, it's not.
What's the problem?
He's not like making a song. I'm like, I think it sounds great. Like it's dope to hear him list so many people and fit it all into one song.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear too many artists doing songs like that. We're just listing off a ton of
No,
names and making it rhyme.
and it's not like it's done superfluously or anything like
Right.
that. Like it's fine.
No,
But
he's
I
being
mean,
genuine about it. And
what I like too is that like when you hear, I feel like when you've heard, if KRS-One names an artist and Eminem names them and LL Cool J and then the Beastie Boys name them and it's kind of the same person, you're probably gonna be like, oh shit, those are all people that I like and they all mention this person. Let me take a look at this person now. Like that's what I always look for. So I'm down.
yeah. And after that, we go into All the Blues.
All the blues.
Super jazzy, funky.
Another Blue reference.
Yep. Yeah, I love this beat as well. And this one is a tribute to Miles Davis.
Why do you think he did the tribute here and not in Miles Davis?
Maybe he didn't want to be too obvious. Like maybe he was, like I mentioned before, he was focusing on the sound of Miles Davis, and then now All the Blues, focusing on Miles Davis's life. I don't know, probably just wanted to be creative, I guess. Or
No, that's fine with me. I'm just curious. But yeah, it's got a jazzy tune. I really like it. It kind of puts in a historic chronological events of Miles Davis, I believe. Like, I don't know. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's dope. I mean, Miles Davis is probably the most prominent and influential jazz musician of all time.
He's a legend.
So he deserves a tribute, for what he contributed to music and black music and hip hop. He sparked a lot of the music that's coming out today. So yeah, I love it that he did this on the album.
Is that Spread Sunshine?
Yeah, now we're gonna spread some sunshine.
Spread it. Spread it.
Yeah, so this one really goes into the theme of miles and going across many miles in life and spreading your sunshine, spreading who you are as a person wherever you go.
You're just like skipping through this field and spreading rainbows and flowers and having a great time.
And he, in his lyrics, he definitely gives you the vision and the feeling of going across many miles when he says, I will push through the snow in Russia, over the mountains in China, swim through the Pacific Ocean, walk the hot of Sahara. I will go to the depths of hell and the gates of heaven and come back from the afterlife just to complete my mission, spreading sunshine. And
sounds like dedication.
Yeah. It sounds like no matter what I'm going through, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spread my sunshine. Yeah, super dope track. The beat is a little off kilter, I guess. But it's a dope beat. It's different. It's very jazzy. Sometimes jazz is off kilter a little bit. But then you find the swing of it, and it's dope. But it's a different type of beat than the rest of the album, for sure.
Yeah, it's different. I think it still fits. But I mean, again, the only time it really wasn't fitting was with the reggae, but that was still cool to listen to.
Right.
So, yeah, it was a dope track. Which then, does that bring us to the end?
That brings us to the end.
Not like the end of the album, but like the track, the end.
Exactly.
Which is then the end of the album?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
It's the bookend.
Oh, okay. But this one was, I want to say this is the second longest track on the album.
Yeah, it's a posse cut. So it's going to be a little bit longer. You got Blu, you got Joe Haas, who is in Dirty Science. He also has a group with Exile called Dag Savage. They have some dope albums out together. Definitely go check that out. Then you got Cassius King, who's super dope. He's got a lot of great albums, who came up with Blu. Then you got Adad, who's newer to Dirty Science. I'm not as familiar with him. And then you got Exile rapping on this as well. So there's a lot of verses going on here, and it's a very apocalyptic. All the lyrics are very dark and about basically the end of the world, and Blu's referencing a lot of celebrities and historical figures who have died or gotten murdered or killed themselves. So yeah, they're talking about a lot of different things.
I like Exile's energy on this track, it sounds a lot different than
Yeah.
other tracks on the album, for sure. Definitely a lot faster, just like, kind of like I don't want to say he wasn't feeling anything else that he was doing, but this one I felt like, okay, you're in. You're good.
Right. Yeah, and I love Joe Haas's verse. I thought he killed it. He says, the provolone, the cheese, Gouda, the Fetty Wap, I even with the vegans, N-word, and shit a whopper. They raise a gun to their people, but never hear the copper. Seek fortunes from evil before I shit with the chakras. My philosophy is iller than Socrates, on point like isosceles with verbal atrocities. You operate sloppily, we murder your mockery.
On point like isosceles?
Yeah, dude.
Whoa. That's like 3 points right there at least.
You're just spitting some crazy wordplay right there, but I love the reference from cheese and Fetty Wap.
Man, we didn't even talk about
cheese
Fetty
and
Wap
money.
Anymore. Where is that guy? I feel like he was like the start of just shit music, but that's just me. But I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I like the beat. I like how they all go in and kind of having at it and doing their thing, and kind of a great way to end the album. Because the album was kind of low key and it had its ups and downs, but in a jazz sense of
right,
low key,
which is very
mellow and
that's very. That's what jazz is. There's going to be moments where it ebbs and flows as you listen to it.
Yeah.
One of the lines from Adad that I really liked was, "Oh, what a deep truth. They don't see the bleak proof. You ignore the wisdom when you're thinking with a sweet tooth. Power is warm, but cadavers is cool." So I love that entendre of your wisdom, sweet tooth, wisdom tooth.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was dope. That was a cool line.
Oh my. Oh my. So, but yeah, man, it was cool.
Yeah, it's a dark way to end the album, but it ends with a lot of energy. Like you said, it's a little bit faster paced beat, and it kind of ends you on a high note. Not high as in the feeling of it, but the high as in like high energy.
Yeah.
It almost makes you want to revisit the album to go back into the more lighthearted parts. Like you want to go back and feel good again at the beginning, because this is such like a dark apocalyptic song. You almost don't want to end on that. You want to like end on a higher, like a positive note. So it just makes you want to start the album over again.
All right, I feel that. I guess I won't call you out or say anything. I guess I feel that.
So that's all the tracks. I really want to spend some time talking about Exile and his production. I thought he absolutely killed it. His beats are just incredible. There's so much going on, yet they're simple, and there's dope samples. There's a lot of piano samples. It's very jazzy. I just think it's an incredible backdrop to blues lyrics.
I think overall too, I mean, I really like what he's doing with these jazz samples. I feel like if they were instrumentals, they would stand alone pretty well, and do well. But yeah, I mean, there aren't too many people that can take jazz and like, especially 20 tracks worth, 18, I guess, and really make them things that are like, that you want to listen to for that long. So
yeah, that's
cool.
an incredible feat. And if you're a person that gets put off by long albums, and you're worried about that, and you're used to the times we're in where artists are putting out short projects that are 10 songs, 8 songs, and it's 30 minutes long, don't let that sway you from listening to this, because there's enough diversity here, and there's enough depth to the lyrics and the production that will keep you interested throughout the whole time. There was never a point where I was bored or I was like, I don't feel this song, it doesn't fit. Every song fit in the album, and it was all very cohesive. It's a very well-made album, and they worked on this for a couple of years. So they put the time into it. This is definitely a project. It's not a collection of songs that they just threw together to put out. Like every song had a purpose to be here.
It's a project. It's well put together. It's got a lot of concepts in there that I thought were cool and definitely things that I wasn't expecting. You know, how are you going to go off on a track basically giving someone a history lesson?
Right.
How are you going to dedicate an entire track to artists and people that you look up to? And, you know, it had a lot of good elements to it.
Yeah. So after listening to this, how do you view Blu as a rapper now? Because you did Below the Heavens, and now you're at Blu Miles, and you haven't listened to everything gone in between that Blu's done in between then. Mm-hmm. And so from Below the Heavens to Miles, does that change how you view him as a rapper, or if you would listen to him more, or if like you're okay, I can connect to this a little bit more than I did Below the Heavens?
There's still something there. Like, I really respect everything that he raps about, because I really like when people really give their own experience and they're not prostituting themselves for bitches or for sales or anything like that. Like, the thing I respect about Blu is that he's comfortable where he is. Like, he's not trying to explode out of the underground scene and like really take off and be the next M or Kendrick or Jay-Z or Nas or anything like that. Like, he's comfortable. He knows where his fan base is. He doesn't have to do anything to steer them in any type of way, and he's content. And so, like, I like that. I don't know what it is. Like, you know, all that aside, like, I think it's maybe just his delivery just doesn't catch me. Like, the delivery, the energy, or just something in there. But I mean, in terms of content, what he's talking about, production, those all go well for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, once we move on from this, like, I'm not really going to revisit it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, I would definitely, I don't know who, but I mean, I would probably tell someone else to check it out. Like, you know, he's worth listening to if you really want to hear something.
For me, I was... you already called it. Like, I was blown away by this album because it exceeded my expectations, because it's so rare for, especially a group, you know, two artists like Blu and Exile, to put out a classic album as their first album over a decade ago, and then come out 8 years later from the last album and put out this. That just doesn't happen very often. And I was fully expecting to just be like, oh, it's going to be a cool album. It's not going to, you know, blow me away. It can't be as good as Below the Heavens. Or, you know, maybe it'll be just as good as Giving My Flowers While I Can Still Smell Them. But I think after listening to this for the last week and a half, this may pass Below the Heavens for me as their top project.
You would never say that.
I would.
Wow.
Because it makes sense. I'm growing up with their music. So I was in high school when Below the Heavens came out. That's very much a coming of age album, right? Now we come to Miles. It's very much of being an adult and how you process the world and how you fit into the world. So it makes a lot of sense for me to connect to this album where I'm at now, because I'm on that level as well, as opposed to if you put Below the Heavens out now, I probably wouldn't connect to it as much. You know what I mean? So right now for me, this is the album that I wanted from them. I didn't need another Below the Heavens. I don't need another coming of age album.
I feel like you just broke up with Below the Heavens. It's like, hey, like, I've really like thought about the last couple years, and I'm ready to. We just reached our emotional peak, and I need to find someone else that can really do that for me. And so you're going for like the older sister.
No, this is no. I think they're just incredible artists, and they were able to harness their creativity and put out this project, and they took their time with it, which is, I respect that a lot. They didn't just put it out to get attention or money or whatever. They put it out because they took their time with it and created the project that they felt would be worthy of the longtime fans of Blu and Exile. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's the feeling I get from it, that they really put all of their time and energy into it and didn't hold back. Yeah, that's how I feel. I think this will surpass Blu and Exile, or Below the Heavens, and this will be considered another classic by them.
Does it go gold or platinum?
No, it doesn't need to.
Okay.
The people can speak, with their voices. You don't need everyone to buy it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it will be considered a classic in the next 5 years.
Classic amongst those fans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not by the general public, because they're not going to hear it. I mean, who else? What other artist is putting out an album like this? You know what I mean? An hour and a half with so many concepts and themes and so much diversity and depth to the lyrics and the production.
That's the thing that got me, is I think around the 11th or 12th track, I was like, man, I still got a minute to go. Because all these tracks that were upcoming, like they were 4-minute long tracks. They were going a long time. So that's why I was like, but if you were to do, I mean, that's just kind of up to the listener to break it up into 2 parts and to do that. But who's going to do that with music?
Right.
So, but those are my rap thoughts on this thing.
Yeah, that's my rap thoughts. Thank you for listening to this episode on Blu and Exile Miles, an interlude called Life. We hope you enjoyed it. The episode was just as long as the album, so enjoy. Which is only fitting, makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to the next episode on the Rap Thought podcast.
Yeah, interacting with you on the socials. So
peace.